Hello, I'm from the US government. Does something feel wrong in the world, but you can't put your finger on it? Are you yearning to fight injustice and be part of something bigger? Do you do your own research? If so, you've been chosen to participate in our new PSYOP. QAnon. PSYOPs are usually carried out by our intelligence agencies in countries we've invaded or whose governments we've overthrown, in order to convince the local population that we're there to help them. QAnon is just like that, except the target isn't a foreign population. It's you. And the government we're planning to overthrow is... Follow the white rabbit. At the heart of this PSYOP is Q, a government insider who will give you advance warning about major events, like the arrest of Hillary and deep state leaders, which never happened, and the end of the Democratic Party in 2018, who actually went on to win the House that year. And if years of fake predictions start to get you down, don't worry. Trust the plan. The best part of this PSYOP is you'll believe you're in a PSYOP, except that's not the PSYOP you're actually in, but the PSYOP where we let you think you're in a PSYOP. PSYOPception. Q-proof. Joining QAnon is easy because at its core there are some truths. Like, the media really does lie to you. There really are powerful predators out there, and there really is a global pedophile ring that ritually abuses kids. But as you follow Q's droppings, you'll gradually LARP yourself deep into the rabbit's rectum, where you'll find others who yearn to fight injustice just like you. The 5G crew, the Plandemic crowd, the FEMA camps, and chemtrail folks too. All LARP together into a single LARP we can control. Where we LARP one, we LARP all. In exchange for all this entertainment and newfound sense of purpose, all we ask for in return is your help. No, you fucking idiots, not to arrest Hillary. You has convinced patriots, even the guy who spent decades warning you about the police state and martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. What's that? When do we take down the deep state? Aw, honey. The guy who exposed the real deep state is being tortured by it right now. And where are you? Oh, that's right. Q told you to trust the plan and have a big circle jerk on Aiken. The Great Awakening. And that's the purpose of QAnon, to convince those who would normally be on the front line of fighting our shitfuckery to sit by and watch as we prosecute your truth tellers, purge your justice system, and rat fuck this election. QAnon. Nothing can stop what's coming, because you'll be sitting on your ass when it does.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. As we make sure that we're firing up all across the internet, I do think I need better off with the overhead light. I do think it's better with that. I think it might be better with that. Anyhow, I hope you all had a phenomenal Labor Day weekend, that it was exciting, that good things happened to you. Maybe you had a family barbecue. Maybe you caught a ball game. I don't know. Something like that. Something like that. Feeling as if this is camera setting off. Just head. I'm like a talking head. This feels wrong. This feels wrong. No, definitely not doing talking head. We're definitely going back out. Back out, out. You're like, that's definitely better. No, that's too much. In. We'll take it. Out. There we go. You like it? I think that's better. Yeah, that's definitely better. Much better. I was like that Zed guy who I like. I like Zed. Zed is good. Zed is cool. Zed is entertaining. He's informational. I like Zed. But he does do the whole talking head thing where it's just like you just see his head. That's like his thing. And I would feel like I was like copyright infringing or something like that if I was going to do the whole talking head thing. So yeah, we're not going to copyright infringe on Zed. Definitely not doing that. Although he's worth a follow. I don't think he knows who I am, but I've been following him since before I've been doing this. He was one of my inspirations. I was like, that kid can do it. I can do this. I can do this too. I can do that. He does his Zeducation. Tell me you guys know who Zed is, right? I'm not talking about from like, Pulp Fiction. It's whose motorcycle is this? It's not a motorcycle. It's a chopper. Whose chopper is this? Zed. Who's Zed? Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead. No, not him. Talking about his education. Anyway, enough about this. let's get on with the topic at hand. Should I do the hard part first? The hard part is the legal work. What do you guys think? Should I do the hard part first? Should I toss it in the middle so you don't even realize that you're learning? We make learning fun. I spent a lot of time trying to break down this lengthy decision, which was slamming Judge Chutkan, slamming her. I mean, just not in the exciting type of way. I don't want to overhype it. It's not in the exciting type of way where it's like they're just like, you raving stark lunatic idiot. They do, I think, use the word idiot at one point when they're just like, this is such a bad decision from Judge Chutkan. So yeah, and it's an exciting, and it's, you know what, I'm talking about it enough. Perhaps I should. We should do that. Let's do that. Let's go over there. We'll start there. We'll take care of this. And it really doesn't even start with the decision. We really need to start with a story that I'm sure most of you may recall. It starts with the story that happened, which was broken by Project Veritas before Trump was sworn back in for his second term. After he won the election, this was in December of 2024. Good times, top of my head is missing. Is that really true? I think it's technically accurate. It just makes me look taller, though, right? I mean, I think that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. The first, I don't know, 6 months that I knew Nick, I assumed he was like 5'6" because his camera angle was always, he just looked so. Hi guys, my lighting and camera need adjusting. What? Everyone's a critic. I'm glad. Everyone should have good times. I don't know. I'm in a particularly good mood tonight. Good mood. I'm going to break down for you why I have every right to be in a particularly good mood tonight. That's part of the problem there. That's a little better. I have every reason to be in a particularly good mood tonight. All right. You know what? I'm going to spill it. I'm going to spill it first. Should I spill it first? Yeah, I'm gonna spill that first. We'll spill that first. You want to know why I'm in a good mood tonight? Why I have every reason to be in a great mood tonight? It's because of this. Oh my gosh! Enough complaints. They're all complaining about the lighting. They want me to be like a little lower also. Okay, we all happy now? Are we all happy now? I'm back in my regular digs. I'm trying to get back adjusted. Is that better now? All right. I was such a good mood. I started in such a good mood, and all of a sudden, all of these are just complaints. Just complaints. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, good mood. Here's why. Remember when they were talking about no tax on tips? And I was joking about how my whole livelihood is tips. And I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Well, they did pass the no tax on tips, but that was meant for like waiters and waitresses, right? Folks like that, people who really work for a living, people who really slave away. And I mean that sincerely, the people who are like killing themselves, no tax on tips. And when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, they definitely should do that. They definitely should do no tax on tips. I think that's appropriate. Well, sure enough, Donald Trump has updated the list of who gets included on no tax on tips, and included on there, number 209, is digital content creators who produce and publish on digital platforms original entertainment or personality-driven content, such as live streams, short-form videos, or podcasts. That's right. That's right. No tax on tips. I love you, Donald. I love you. Oh my God. That's right. That's right. So all this stuff you see here, $2 cha-ching, tax-free. $2 cha-ching, tax-free. Even memberships, horrible lighting, camera angle. Give it at me. I don't care. That's tax-free. That's right. I don't know how that happened. I don't know who this guy is who convinced him. He's someone who's probably more famous than I am. But President Trump expanded no tax on tips to cover streamers and other online creators. And that means that when Brian Oldenkamp, God bless this man, but when Brian Oldenkamp comes along and says, hey, I'm gonna send in 50 new followers, I say to you, hot diggity. Because all the new followers are coming to me tax-free. God bless you. God bless you. God bless Donald Trump. The theory is the thought that people have is that he's looking to appeal to folks like me, I guess, to people who follow streamers and other streamers and wants to encourage people to stream. So yeah. This is like life-changing. This is really awesome news. I don't know if my friends know yet. I don't know if my other peers know yet, but this was shared with me by one of really awesome news. One of my amazing followers shared that with me, and I was like, just very excited. Very excited. Doing the whole Irish jig thing. Very, very excited. But I should point out that we do have new members. You got to pay the bills, and that includes calling out following 20 people, new members of the following should extend their gratitude to Brian Oldenkamp. Please, the captain of recruitment. Definitely, I'm giving you captain at least. I'm giving you you've earned captainship. I'm giving you your captain. I hereby don you captain of recruitment. I'm giving you that title, but Brian, I greatly appreciate how you bring people into the fold. The following 20 people should express their gratitude to the awesome captain of recruitment, Brian Oldenkamp. And that would include Lisa Faltersack, 5535, KG811, Sharon Drury, 5676, Echo Victor 6, Liberty Loudmouth, Kelly Suggs, 93, Bob Jones, 9068, Duckin' Felonies. So that's a name I've seen around here for it's been a minute. Julie Mumford, Rosemary Hill 8925, RMIU2FD, KJ9814, Meta with a long E. Meta with a long E. Meta? Does that make it Meta? If it's Meta, but Meta? Does that make it Meta? I don't even know, because long E, from what I understand, is like the E sound, like not an A, but E. So Meta with a long E? That's what we're going with. JLBGA. Also, new member of the following. Welcome Kansas Mima 8346, Taylor Logan 5826, Beatrix Kiddo 3867. Great movie right there. Dread Clown 9977, and finally, last but not least, it did jump on me. That's right, it did. It does that sometimes. JJ Hoff 1379. Welcome to the following. Please bear in mind that the following is not at all a cult type of cult. It's just a gathering of like-minded individuals for greater community, unity, and personal greater personal growth through community unity, learning, and thinking. Sweatshirts not included, but yes. Welcome to the following, and please extend your gratitude to Brian Oldenkamp. I just called out your name. And Aaron says, well, here you go then. Stick this in your garter. Yeah, I'm keeping the whole $10 right there. Yeah, he wanted Uncle Sam was taking was taking like $4.80 out of that before. Oh my God, it was getting bad. It was getting bad. Now Thank you. I feel like I'm practically an exotic dancer. I got a good laugh out of Lady Logic. She's like laying over here. I got a good laugh out of her. All right. Let's get into the hard work. Let's do the hard work here. We're going to start with this. Some of you may recall back in December 2020, there was a story that was broken by Project Veritas. Not Project Veritas, excuse me. It was Project Veritas. Yeah, this is before O'Keefe. This is by Project Veritas. It was not O'Keefe. I thought it was O'Keefe. This is back when there was a Project Veritas. I think they closed down since then. But we still have OMG with James O'Keefe. So that, and he's the heart and soul. He's the only one who really matters there. So this story was about how the Biden administration was desperately trying to shove out billions of dollars, and basically make it as removed from government hands as possible to their friends and family under the auspices, under the rubric of trying to help climate change. This was a snippet from an interview of someone who was working for the EPA back in December of 2024.
Just how to get the money out as fast as possible.
We should do that a little slower, right? We should do that like... Yeah, we're good.
Or they come in and like, it truly feels like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing like gold bars off the top hatch.
Who are the gold bars going to?
Nonprofits, states, tribes. We gave them the money because it was harder. If it was a government-run program, they could take the money away. If Trump won, and because it was a insurance policy against Trump winning. Until the Trump people come in and tell us we can no longer give up money. I do environmental climate policy things.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Is that stuff is here?
I mean, because I do like federal government climate things. Well, I have been doing that. That might change, but
why?
So look at the EPA. So a lot of attention.
Amazing.
Right.
So I do.
Well, that was really all we needed from that. We don't need to go through the whole 5 minutes. Most of you have likely seen that video. It's probably been a minute since you saw it, but you did see it. That followed up with Lee Zeldin talking about how they're going after the money. Lee Zeldin, who is the current head of the EPA, really based guy. He tried actually running for governor in New York, I believe, a senator. He was, I think, he was, I believe, in Congress. He's from Long Island, as I recall. Long Island is far more. Long Island, which, if you're not familiar with how New York City is structured, so New York City is comprised of 5 boroughs. Each of those boroughs is really just a different county, but in the city they call it boroughs. So Queens is in the southwest corner. Queens County, Queens, the borough of Queens is in the southwest county. It's actually physically connected to Brooklyn and interspliced, where you can walk from one street to the next, and you'll start in Queens and be in Brooklyn. That's to the west of Queens. If you go east of Queens, you're going out to Long Island. First you hit Nassau, and then you hit Suffolk. So I believe that I think he was from Suffolk. Could be Nassau. Not sure, but I'm almost positive it was Long Island. Anyway, there was talk of him at one point before J.D. Vance was named, of him actually being named as Trump's potential VP. And I would have been fine with that. The person who was implying that was Sebastian Gorka. He seemed to say it was a done deal, which makes me sort of question just how reliable the done deal is when people say that sort of thing. Because I was like, that's a pretty audacious claim to make, which obviously did not pan out. I'm not looking to bash on anyone. I'm just simply pointing out people make claims sometimes. But anyway, Lee Zeldin did not get that job, but he did become head of the EPA. And here's him talking about that very clip.
He's held in, joining us now as we watch this, and he's also digging into waste at the EPA. How's that going so far?
Oh, we're crushing it. We have a great team. Big development yesterday. It was a couple months ago. There was this video that came out of a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic. It says it multiple times in the video, rushing to get billions of dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. Well, members of Congress were really concerned about that. So as I'm going through the confirmation process, they said, if confirmed, will you commit to making this a top priority to find those gold bars? Came in, I was just confirmed a couple of weeks ago. We found them. They were at a bank parked just outside of government. $20 billion was sent there, and a little oversight. 8 entities would be receiving all $20 billion, and they would be distributing all of these funds without EPA knowing everything that we need to do our job to provide accountability to Congress, the media, and to the public.
So
All right. So there you go. There's that. There's that. Okay, so they basically put in, and Trump affecting it, and the EPA shut that down. They shut down those payments, tried clawing back and stopping any further payments from going out from the bank to these 8 entities who were collecting $20 billion collectively. And predictably, the 8 companies who were seeking to suck from the government teat went to court. And of course, they went to DC, and they happened to get Judge Chutkan. Judge Chutkan had them come in and signed off on a TRO. Now, this was something that was somewhat perplexing. The reason it was perplexing is because you sort of have to ask yourself, this is a financial claim. It's not supposed to be in district court. It should be going to the Federal Court of Claims, which is designed to deal with disputes between the United States and anyone who the United States of America contracts with, if you're in contract with them. Now, what did they do? They didn't file a contract claim because their attorneys, look, if you're making billions of dollars, you're going to have pretty decent attorneys. Their attorneys were clever enough to leave out that it was any sort of contractual claim and instead try dressing everything up as being a constitutional claim or some sort of statutory or regulatory issue and violations of their rights. And based on that, Judge Chutkan asserted her authority, her ability to weigh in there, and issued a declaratory judgment, which was designed to facilitate and compel the banks to continue making payments to these 8 climate change, climate justice entities. Well, this went to the DC Circuit Court. I'm going to break down for you what it is that they said, because their decision was excellent. And I spent a lot of time breaking this down so we could do this expeditiously. I don't want to spend like an hour going through this 90-page decision. So I highlighted and I tried making this so we can do this as effectively as possible. Joe's finally home. Welcome back to New Jersey, where you can finally get back to full tyranny. Joe is going to be missing the country life of the Catskills. I'm good here. It was nice being there. That was great. And now it's nice being home. Here's a couple extra tax-free bucks for you. Woohoo! Cha-ching! With no tax, Joe can finally pay that. Why would you do this? Why would you do that? Like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you bring that up? Like, this is like, I'm having a good time here. Why? Why would you do that? Why? Like, just don't bring it up. Okay. I deal with I mean, why? Just why? It's the second time like in a week that you brought it up. Hey, exotic dancer, make you screen bigger. You're not TV size. This is as big as it's gonna get. Okay, this is good. This is good. This is as good. This is as good as it gets. All right. It's from what they tell me, it's only downhill from here. It's not like I'm looking to hit like, I think I peaked. So I think we're good. I think we're good. We are. But thank you kindly. I should check over, make sure that I didn't get hit with anything over here. Oh, I know I failed. I know I failed in opening up the chat. I didn't open up locals. I apologize for that. I'm doing that now. The Digger Playroom is now open for locals. You find locals, people. All right, let's get into this decision because I enjoyed it and I think you will too. Look how long it takes them to reach a decision. Look at this. Argued May 19th, 2025. Decided September 2nd, 2025. So it's 3.5 months. All right. Climate United Fund versus Citibank NA and Environmental Protection Agency and Liam Zeldin. There we go. I just wanted to point out to you, we should talk about who argued this case. Arguing for the government? Yeah, that's right. Yaakov M. Roth. Arguing for the United States of America. Yaakov M. Roth. Nice Jewish lawyer. Look, we get a lot of bad press, okay? We get a lot of bad press. When there's a Jew out there who does something that's pretty based and does it well, which he definitely did, I just figured let me highlight that. You see, they don't have Jewish lawyers over here. No. Yanikowski, that's not Jewish. No. Sorry. He's arguing for these climate change things. Should have gone Jew. You're getting a lawyer, you don't go Jew. Got billions of dollars. What are you thinking? All right. I highlight in green, in light green, certainly. I highlight factual stuff. So when we're looking through this, you'll know that that these are like facts behind the case. In light yellow, I'll like this. I'll put like that's when I'm highlighting various arguments that are being made. Dark yellow that you may see here is actual court decision. Like this is a statement. This is the law, at least as of today. So this is a statement of law. So Environmental Protection Agency awarded grants worth $16 billion to 5 nonprofits to promote the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, citing concerns about conflicts of interest and lack of oversight. That's what Lee Zeldin was saying. The EPA terminated the grants in March of 2025. The grantees sued, and the district court entered a preliminary injunction ordering EPA and Citibank to continue funding the grants. We conclude the district court abused its discretion in issuing the injunction. Grantees are not likely to succeed on the merits. No. You're going down in flames. Jurisdiction lies exclusively in the court of federal claims. Where, you see, this is when you actually have a healthy application of law, you just come to normal conclusions. Grantee's constitutional claim is meritless, which is the equities strongly favor the government, which on behalf of the public must ensure the public oversight and management of this multi-billion-dollar fund. Accordingly, we vacate the injunction. Now, in order to get an injunction, there's several things you need to establish. One of them is that the balancing of equities favors you. If you're looking to get injunctive relief, the court must be convinced that if we look at what's fairest, like what's the balance of equities must be favoring the movement. Otherwise, you lose. You need to also show irreparable harm, likelihood of success, balancing of equities. All of these, if you fail in any of them, you're not entitled to an injunction. So what the court here is saying is balancing of equities favors the government. What seems fairest here favors the government. All right. So under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, for which Congress appropriated $27 billion, the EPA awarded $20 billion to 8 nonprofits pursuant to 2 of the grant programs it created, the National Clean Investment Fund and the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. They always have these long, complicated titles, don't they? Always. They like these always, and it's always like this virtues-sounding names, which for doing the most corrupt type of activity. 5 of these grantees are plaintiffs in this case. Climate United Fund, $6.97 billion. Coalition for Green Capital, $5 billion. Power Forward Communities, $2 billion. Inclusive Inc., $1.87 billion. And Justice Climate Fund, $940 million. it's like you think like, oh, this is the pauper. This is the pauper. This is the small one, right? $940 million. Sick. It's so sick. They're so twisted. Each grant was memorialized in an agreement between the nonprofit and the EPA. This is a fancy way of saying they had contracts. Contracts. This is an important element. There were contracts. Typically, grant funds are held by the U.S. Treasury and dispersed incrementally as grantees use the funds for program purposes. Now, here's what they did that was weird, which is why I put this in like this strange color. The EPA, this is Biden's EPA, before Trump was in there, structured these grants with a middleman that would hold the funds as a financial agent of the United States. This is the first time the federal government used a financial agent as opposed to Treasury to carry out this kind of grant program. Never did it before. But all of a sudden, when you have this last minute, let's shove the gold bars off the Titanic, let's do this new thing where the government itself is not going to be holding the money. No. We're going to take it out of the government's hands and put it in the control of a middleman bank. This way, these agencies wouldn't have to come to a Trump government official and ask for a restock of money. They could hope to bypass that and just go to Citibank. They were hoping, because you have to realize from their mindset when they're creating this, and let's just think, you have to put yourself in their shoes when they're actually going through this whole thing. In their minds, they're thinking to themselves, no one's going to really be paying close attention to this. No one's going to know what's happening here. So if the money is not in government's control, but it's in the bank's control, and the bank is playing the role of playing sugar daddy, of giving money out as it becomes warranted, there's no one in the government to actually even notice it. The money's already been removed from government, and this way, it's much less likely. They had no idea that some clown looking to impress his date would start mouthing off about how they're throwing gold bars off the side of the Titanic. When they're doing it, that's before he's mouthing off. When they're structuring this whole thing, that's before he's mouthing off. So they structure this whole thing, and then he mouths off, and that's what called it to everyone's attention. It's really because of Project Veritas that this came out to the public's attention, because frankly, you have to question, would Lee Zeldin have known about this? Would he have been focusing on this? Certainly not as quickly as he did. There's no way he would have discovered it. Maybe a year or two from now, they'd be like, hey, what happened with that funding from the stupid Reinvestment Act of Biden? No, whatever happened there. Oh. And by that time, most of the money would probably be swallowed up and vacuumed away by these ridiculous green companies. So they didn't expect that Trump's government, that his administration, would even know about this. And if they figured if these companies had to come back and actually start asking for restock of more money, then that might alert the Trump administration to the fact that they have these ridiculous, stupidly huge grants. So this way they wouldn't have to come knocking on Trump's door. They could just go knocking on some guy who doesn't care, and it's just some bank who just doesn't care. It's like, oh, okay, here you go. This is what the contract says. Okay, here you go. And they're just doing it without thinking. I mean, they're doing what they're supposed. The bank is doing what they're supposed to be doing in this context. I mean, that's their role. And until they're told otherwise, they're supposed to keep doing, just like they're like a machine that just keeps, dispersing the money to them. So I don't have any issue with the bank per se. They're just fulfilling a function. But the funds were to be transferred from Treasury to Citibank in a two-step transaction involving a drawdown by the grantee and a subsequent disbursement to the appropriate Citibank account. So in other words, it was all the $20 billion is held in some big, massive account by Citibank, and then as monies were owed, and they could basically, provide some sort of documentation to Citibank, Citibank would transfer from one account to a different account of one of the private companies, So you sort of have like a trust account with the 20 billion, and from the trust, they would keep just dispersing out to these private entities as it became appropriate under the terms of the agreement. The money may be used only for purposes and under the conditions of the grant agreement and must be maintained at Citibank until the end of the grant period of performance. And I thought this was important, which is why I made it dark green. The ACA gave the government a right to exclusive control. That's one of the agreements here. The funds were restricted by the account control agreement called ACA. And the ACA gave the government a right to exclusive control over the Citibank accounts. So if the government has control, you can see how contractually it seems like they got a good chance of being able to take that back. They can assert their control. If the government exercises the right, Citibank must follow the government's transfer instructions without further consent by the grantee, which means that the money that's being held in that big trust account ultimately is a decision for the government to make as to whether or not it stays there. The ACA has expressly acknowledged that Citibanks act as a financial agent of the United States pursuant to the authority of the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So there's another important little nugget here, which is that these bank accounts, you know, who's the master of Citibank in this relationship? It's not these 8 companies. It remains the United States government. The record includes a widely publicized video in which an EPA employee was recorded describing how until recently, quote, until recently, his role was to make sure proper processes are in place to prevent fraud and to prevent abuse. But after the election of President Donald Trump, EPA was just trying to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and stop it all. The employee compared the situation to throwing gold bars off the Titanic. The month before President Trump's inauguration, EPA modified the grant agreements with no apparent consideration from the grantees. I'm going to tell you right now, that guy, I saw some people crediting Lee Zeldin with coining that phrase, throwing gold bars off the Titanic. No, it was that guy. It was that EPA worker who I'm sure is humiliated that that's been stolen and actually incorporated into a decision. Because I'm sure he's one of these woke dudes also. He didn't seem to have any problem doing what he was doing. So a month before Trump's inauguration, EPA modified the grant agreements with no apparent consideration from the grantees to make it more difficult for the government to terminate the grants. So this is what Biden did. They wanted to make it harder for Trump to stop this from going out because they're so freaking corrupt. The week before inauguration, Biden's EPA, amended the ACA to require Citibank to continue to disperse funds to the grantees, even if the government exercises its right of exclusive control, if the funds are associated with financial obligations properly incurred before the government exercises its rights. So more steps being taken by the Biden administration to make sure that your taxpayer dollars are sucked away to their friends. Zeldin's EPA reviewed the grants and raised concerns about conflicts of interest during the award process. The political connections of the chosen grantees, lack of government oversight and control over tens of billions of dollars, and last-minute amendments to the grant agreements and ACAs. They also recommended to Citibank that it place an administrative freeze. So first, Zeldin was like, we're recommending that you freeze this. We think you should be stopping making payments. And Citibank complied. When Zeldin came to them and said, we don't want you giving out more money, they said, okay, fine. We won't give out more money because they recognize, because like I said, the bank is just doing what the bank is supposed to be doing. They're not looking to get into, they'd like to have the money there because the money in their account, that gives them more money to play with. That's what banks want to have, as many huge accounts as possible. But they also recognize that they're legally and financially obligated to follow the terms of the contract. And that means the government says stop. So they said, we'll stop. Shortly thereafter, the EPA terminated the grant agreements. The grantees sued, seeking to enjoin terminations as unconstitutional, unlawful, and arbitrary and capricious. Okay. Unconstitutional, unlawful, and arbitrary and capricious. You know what's missing from this claim from the grantees? Breach of contract. Now, that normally should be the first thing you would throw out there, right? There's breach of contract here. There's a contract agreement between us. We started all in the beginning saying there's agreements between the United States government and these green companies. There's no breach of contract claim. because their attorneys were shrewd enough to realize that as soon as they put a breach of contract claim in there, they're killing their ability to get a TRO. You're also far less likely to win. The district court entered the injunction. It first held, this is Judge Chutkan, first held that it had a jurisdiction because the grantee's claims were not essentially contractual, not really a contract, and therefore it did not need to be brought in the Court of Federal Claims. She also concluded the grantees were likely to succeed in their constitutional, regulatory, and arbitrary and capricious claims. The district court found the balance of harms supported an injunction because nonprofits exist to fulfill the objectives of the grant, and sufficient protections are in place to prevent reckless spending. What are those protections? What are those protections? Because I don't think she says it anywhere. The district court further concluded that an injunction halting any unlawful action serves the public interests. The court enjoined Citibank as well, requiring it to disperse funds according to the relevant agreements. In this context, when they're saying that Citibank was enjoined, usually enjoined we think of as meaning something that someone stopped from doing something. But in this context, it's actually an active enjoyment, meaning it's compelling a party to act. So she was compelling Citibank to continue making disbursements to these green companies. While this litigation was pending, Congress enacted legislation repealing the greenhouse gas reduction funds. So Congress basically said, we're done with this fund. Oh. So that's another helpful factor for the government. Let's get into their findings. The district court, here's their conclusion. The district court erred in concluding the grantees are likely to succeed on their regulatory, arbitrary, and capricious and constitutional claims. Describing see Amer v. Obama, describing likelihood of success and the merits, and the most important factor when considering preliminary injunction. So, the grantees' regulatory and arbitrary and capricious claims can be heard only in the Court of Federal Claims, and their constitutional claim is meritless. So all the other stuff, you raise multiple claims. The constitutional claim could properly be before the district court, but that's meritless. You lose on that. Your other stuff is supposed to be in the Federal Court of Claim, the Court of Federal Claims. So what else does the court say? For contract claims against the government, the Tucker Act establishes review in the Court of Federal Claims. This is why you can't be here in district court. And to be clear, in case some of you are a little confused about what we mean by the Court of Federal Claims, it's a federal court, but it's considered a different court. Same way for bankruptcy, there's a whole separate court system. For immigration, there's a separate court system, most of whom we're going to talk about are not actually considered federal judges. They're not part of the judiciary. They're considered part of the executive branch, which is going to be relevant in a story that we're covering later. But so too, the Federal Court of Claims is its own separate court, separate from the district courts. And that's the special place specifically designated for any persons or entities who have contractual claims that the United States of America owes them money. So, for contract claims against the government, the Tucker Act establishes review in the Court of Federal Claims, which may award only damages and cannot provide declaratory or injunctive relief except in narrow circumstances. It's almost impossible to get an injunction in the Court of Claims. The Tucker Act jurisdiction is exclusive. So when it goes to when Tucker Act says you got to go to the Federal Court of Claims, you have no authority to take the United States of America to federal district courts. It's exclusive and precludes jurisdiction in the district court under the APA's waiver. The jurisdictional inquiry. So now, how do we know, why is it that they're saying that this falls under the federal? They're going to break down why this is not a claim, because the language used in the complaint is, this is not a contractual claim. And what Judge Rao does here is, I assume it's pronounced Rao, R-A-O, that what he does is he cuts through the chaff and basically recognizes and points out how no matter how you want to label it as some sort of statutory claim, or you want to try and label it arbitrary and capricious claim and not a contract claim, at the end of the day, it's still a contract claim. And just because you're dressing it up as something else, it's basically like a 60-year-old white dude, with grizzly beard wearing a dress. And I say, look, it's a girl. It's a girl. So they're saying, like, look, this is an arbitrary and capricious. It's not at all contract claim. But anyone looking at it is just like, really? 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 The jurisdictional inquiry cannot turn on a plaintiff's preferred characterization of its claim. Doesn't matter how you label it. That's not what decides it. Why? Because if that happens, we're going to end up upsetting the carefully modulated waiver of sovereign immunity and grant of remedies for breach of contract embodied in the Tucker Act. What does this mean with respect to sovereign immunity? So what they had explained earlier that I tried skipping past was that the general de facto status is you cannot sue the government. You have no legal authority. Because they are the sovereign entity, you have no legal authority to sue the government. However, if by statute the government agrees and accepts upon itself that in certain circumstances they will allow individuals to sue them, then you can sue the government. This applies to state and federal, and every state and federal government has exceptions and has created statutes in order to lace in the ability of citizens who are wronged by the government to get redress of their claims. But the status quo is if you don't have a statute that specifically authorizes you to bring a case against the government, you have no claim, and the judiciary has no authority to give you any sort of relief. Now, for almost any type of relief that you could imagine necessary, that could come up, there are statutes already in place from long before you were born, mostly, which would cover an opportunity for you to get redress, but it's not always in the same place. And for example, when it comes, so there's a Federal Tort Claims Act, for example. That's one. So someone gets hurt by a United States employee while the employee is in the process of doing their job function. They get physically harmed. So now they have a tort claim. Normally they would sue the individual. And if that person was working for a private company, they would probably sue his boss under a doctrine of respondeat superior, which is if an employee does something negligent that causes someone else physical harm, you can sue the individual employee, and you really want to sue the deep pocket, which is his boss. So too, the United States of America says, hey, we're the Federal Tort Claims Act, where if someone ends up, somebody in the course of doing work for us ends up causing physical harm, you can bring a claim under this statute. I think it's 1980. I don't remember which code it is. 15 U.S.C. 1980. I don't know. I'm not terribly great at remembering individual codes, but it's the Federal Tort Claims Act, which now empowers someone who, let's say, gets hit by a postal worker who's driving a truck. Guy's driving a truck for the U.S. mail and runs someone over. So that now entitles you not just to sue the individual driver, but to sue the United States of America under respondeat superior type of perspective, that's his boss in that particular capacity, and to seek redress. But when you're going that way, you have to follow the statutes. So if that statute would tell you bring your claims in this court or in that court, that's the only place you have authority. Why is that the only place you have authority? Because the government has sovereign immunity, and they can decide where you're going to have your claims be heard. And if they don't authorize you to have your claims heard in court A or B, but they say only in court C, then that's your only place of bringing that claim. If you try bringing it in court A or court B, your case must be dismissed. At the very best you could hope for is it to be transferred, but it really should be dismissed because you're bringing it in the wrong place. And that court that has no capacity to issue a judgment, no legal authority and jurisdiction to issue any sort of judgment and relief in favor of the plaintiff against the United States of America as a defendant, because there's no statute which tells them that they have that authority. So that's So that's when they're talking over here about the waiver of sovereign immunity and grant of remedies for breach of contract, that the Tucker Act is the one that specifically governs a contractual dispute between the United States and an individual. So that's the only place you can go. You can't come to district court for that. The district court has no authority to hear your claim or offer you any type of relief. So we must therefore assess whether the grantee's claims are essentially contractual, because once we assess that they're essentially contractual, you can't go to district court. You have to go to the federal court of claims. So for each claim, we have to consider, one, whether the source of the rights asserted is contractual, or is it based on truly independent legal grounds? So is it really rooted in something else, or is it at its heart going to be a contract dispute? And two, whether the type of relief sought is a typical contract remedy. Now, they don't say here whether you need to meet on both 1 and 2. Like, what happens if it's not a contract remedy, but it is sort of like a contract type of claim? They don't really address that, but we don't need to nitpick on that, because ultimately the court is going to address this, is going to find in favor of the government on both. So, and how do they do that? So they say the grantees, what did they first claim? Their first claim was that when Zeldin and Trump ended their agreements, that violated OMB regulations. So they're violating their own statutory guidelines. By terminating for agencies' priorities, EPA allegedly relied on a basis for termination not set forth in the grant agreements in violation of 2 CFR 200.340. So they're saying, well, you have to follow your own regulations. You didn't follow your own regulations. The government didn't follow its own code. So that's not contract. Furthermore, the EPA allegedly failed to provide written notice of termination as required by that same statute. Despite the grant, but the court finds that despite the grantee's characterization, their claims are still essentially contractual, and therefore district court lacks jurisdiction to hear them. Why? Well, first, the source of the grantee's right to relief they seek is their agreements, which are contracts. You wouldn't have anything here that they have to keep, except for the fact that they signed contracts with you. So the only reason that they have to follow anything is because they signed contracts. Each grantee's right to the funds arises only upon creation and satisfaction of its contract with the government. In no sense does it exist independently of that contract. So, for example, if you tried saying, hey, they terminated and stopped making payments, you would be saying they have to do it under the contract. They have to keep making these payments under the contract. While the grantees attempt to ground their claims in OMB guidance, the substance of those claims may be understood, quote, as entirely contained within the terms of the contract or in principles of contract law. The claim that the EPA violated 2 CFR 200.340 refers to and incorporates the grant agreements. So you keep trying to skirt away from the breach of contract, but you actually, by reference, incorporating the agreements. The claim that the EPA failed to give proper notice of termination is not an independent legal ground for a slightly different reason. This allegation would properly be phrased as a claim that the government stopped performing on the contract. That's what you're saying. You're just finding other language for it without sufficient warning. The fact that the government's termination contract, quote, also arguably violates certain other regulations doesn't transform the action into one based solely on those regulations. So you might be technically true that their breach of contract is technically considered a violation of a statute here or a statute there. But if you think about it for a second, the reason that's so silly, okay, is if there was a statute which said the government can never breach contract. So now, every time they breach a contract, let's say they wrote that Congress wrote a statute like that the government may never breach a contract. So now, and they write that up as 18 USC 4,321. So now, does that mean that now every time they breach a contract, that the claimants could come in there and say, they just breached a statute. I want the district court here to interpret their breach of statute. No, it's a contract claim. Just because something is a contract claim and also a breach of a statute or a regulation doesn't mean it's not at its heart ultimately a contract claim. And that's the point that they're trying to get at. The substance of the grantee's notice claim sounds in federal contract law. The claim is essentially contractual and can be heard only in the Court of Federal Claims. So too bad you lose. They also point out that the remedy, this was item number 2, the remedy that the grantees seek is contractual in nature. The grantees requested an injunction barring the EPA from terminating the grants, except as permitted in accordance with the ACA, the grant award applicable law, meaning as the contract says. So you're looking for a remedy based on what the contract says. Kind of tells you it's a contract claim. In sum, the grantees cannot manufacture district court jurisdiction through artful pleading. So kudos to Judge Rao in seeing through that. But he goes on further. Nor can the grantees repackage their contract claims by invoking the APA's bar on arbitrary and capricious action. The grantees seek to set aside their grant terminations, which means they seek specific performance. Specific performance is a legal term for when there are terms of an agreement, and one side is saying, "I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I want the other side to specifically perform what their obligations under the agreement are." When you're in law school taking contracts as a first-year law student, they'll bring up a remedy of in contracts. They'll bring up a remedy of specific performance, which may be something like an entertainment company hires Katy Perry to perform at some sort of concert on a certain date, a certain venue, and she says she's not in the mood to do it, and they've sold out all their tickets already, and all these people are expecting her, and she says, like, the morning of, she's like, "No, I feel totally fine. I just don't really like you guys, so I'm not going to be performing." So you can get a remedy of specific performance, run to court and say you must perform. And in that case, it would be like literally performing. But it could be something like someone agrees to build a house. So the person pays the person who pays the contractor gives the money. The contractor has to perform in producing and building the house, as specified in the contract. So that's what specific performance means. So the grantees seek to set aside the grant terminations, which means they seek specific performance. They want the United States to keep doing its part of the agreement. This is a typical contract remedy that indicates a claim is founded upon a contract for purposes of the Tucker Act. So again, we disagree with the grantees on this particular situation. And in some, district courts had no jurisdiction to hear claims that the federal government terminated a grant agreement arbitrarily or with impunity. Claims of arbitrary grant termination are essentially contractual and fall outside the APA's waiver of sovereign immunity. The conclusion is reinforced by the Supreme Court's recent decision to stay posture that a very similar arbitrary and capricious challenge to a federal grant terminations likely could not be brought in district court. See Department of Education case. So in that case, the state plaintiffs sued the district court and claimed the Department of Education's decision to terminate several grants was arbitrary and capricious under the APA. District court enjoined, and the Supreme Court stayed the injunction on the ground that the district court likely lacked jurisdiction over the APA claims because the Tucker Act grants the Court of Federal Claims jurisdiction over suits based on any express or implied contract with the United States. So we had just a recent decision here whereby the court just said, "Hey, this is supposed to be court and claims. Why is this in district court? What are you doing?" The court even doubled down. In a second case, they bring down National Institutes of Health versus American Public Health. The court reasoning requires respect and strongly supports our conclusion that the grantee's arbitrary and capricious challenge to the grant termination is a disguised contract claim that cannot be heard in district court. So kudos to Ralph for bringing that up and saying, hey, we're just following what the Supreme Court told us we're supposed to be doing, which is what every court is supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing what your higher court directs you to do, how they tell you to apply the law. And they refer to this as overwhelming authority. We're not going to get into the claims that come up on page 19 there. So in that case, the federal government was required by law. So in bringing up a secondary case where the grantees pointed to Maryland Department of Human Resources. So in that case, the federal government was required by law to pay block grant funds to Maryland according to a statutory formula. So in that case, that was the grantees over here, the climate fund folks, were like, hey, why don't you look at this case where there was a grant and there was a freeze and that wasn't viewed as being a contract claim. So we also shouldn't be viewed as being a contract claim. And the DC Circuit Court here distinguishes and says that Maryland's claim was not contractual for purposes of the Tucker Act because it turned on the interpretation of statutes and regulations rather than the interpretation of an agreement negotiated by the parties. There was no contract in the Maryland case, only statutes and regulations. So that's why we said that can properly go to the district court. So yeah, there was a grant, but there was no contract there to be interpreted. By contract, these grant agreements are contracts within the meaning of the Tucker Act because they include the traditional contract elements of offer, acceptance, and consideration, which, as every first-year law student knows, that's what makes a contract. Offer, acceptance, and consideration. So we are squarely in contract land. Almost done here. The grantees also maintain, well, I'm about to get up to where they start really slamming into Chutkan and basically questioning, as a court would, kind of questioning what the hell she's even thinking. The grantees also maintain that EPA violated the separation of powers by not enforcing the Inflation Reduction Act, citing In re Aiken. We conclude, however, that the EPA did not violate the Inflation Reduction Act when it terminated those grants. The grantees have identified no statutory provision that barred the cancellation of the grants. So that's going to be a problem for you. We'll come to that in a moment. Let me just catch up on some of these chats that have been coming in. Some of my tax-free chats. My tax-free chats. I love me tax-free chats. Thank you, President Biden. Joe, ignore the second part of that about judgment. I only hope you finalize and get it behind you, as I know it has removed some joy for you. I'm not even going to read any more on these. Okay? I'm not. So I don't care what you spend on it. I'm telling you now. I'll give you a heads up. I'm not reading any more on it. I don't care. You bring it up today, tomorrow, next week. No. It's like, no. That's just like, why? Welcome home. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. I got such a nice present for Trump when I got home. Have my fill of litigation in my business. Know how it stresses me out. Finally, okay, just don't. It's like, just why? I predict by the end of the podcast, you have a magnificent suntan. Off-white people unite. Wait, what's the color doesn't look good? Is that what you're trying to say? I thought it actually gives me good color. I like the color. I do have more bright lights than I do have more bright lights. Joe's telling us ghost stories under the blanket. What is wrong with you all? There's plenty of light in here. There's plenty of... $20 billion would amount to roughly 25,000 standard 400-ounce gold bars at $2,000 per ounce. So yes, they were tossing gold bars out. Yeah. Great math there. Court claims will become a very active docket. And that's fine. Because court claims doesn't give you injunctions. It's almost impossible to get one there, they say. Oh my, I'm not good at remembering cases. Hey, Joe. No worries, Pam. That other Maryland case will also be overturned. All government grants or contracts. Well, I think that they have a stronger case there They have a stronger claim for it in that context when they're reliant on statutes. So I can understand why the DC Circuit would stand behind that. But all right, let's move forward here. The district court's determination that the grantees were likely to succeed on the Constitutional Inflation Reduction Act claim rests on both factual and legal error. Wow. You didn't just get the law wrong. You got the facts wrong. You know what the hell you're talking about, Judge Chutkan. The court found that EPA seeks to dismantle these grant programs in their entirety as a policy matter. Where the hell did you get that, Judge Chutkan? This factual determination not supported by any evidence in the record and rested only on the district court's assertion that EPA suspended all 8 grants. She's literally making stuff up. We have no idea where she came up with this. But apparently, she got some of the really good ganja, and she's like, we all know that that the EPA is looking to dismantle these grant programs. That's not in the record anywhere. No evidence of that. Absent any clear evidence to the contrary, EPA's representations were entitled to a presumption of regularity. So she basically was like, hey, I know what Trump's all about. I know he's just trying to shut this down, and I'm not going to let them. And the court is like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about because there's no evidence to support that. That's not what the evidence indicates. Rather than credit EPA's statements or explain why the presumption of regularity was overcome, the district court simply declared EPA is shutting down the programs. Oh my God, they're shutting down the programs. What are we going to do? They're shutting down. Oh, we're all going to be breathing carbon dioxide. It's going to be everywhere. The gas is going to be breaking through the ozone layer. We're all going to be dying because Trump is shutting down these $20 billion. Lunacy. The court disregarded the government's interest in prudent management of the grant programs and the government's representations that it planned to properly supervise rather than abandon the grant-making process. The district court's conclusory factual finding of program dismantlement was clearly erroneous. Clearly. Now, it's not just erroneous, clearly erroneous. Like Beckwana crazy type of erroneous, just on a factual level. Like the way she reaches conclusions that are not supported at all. This is abuse of discretion. This is not even like a de novo, like, hey, we just think you got it wrong. We would have found it differently. No, you're a lunatic. This is how a circuit court says we think the lower court judge is kind of a lunatic. And this is the DC Circuit Court. This is like the most left-wing circuit out there. And they think Judge Chutkan is crazy. Now, I have a feeling Judge Rao is probably not. This is probably going to go to be reviewed en banc, which means it's going to be heard by the entire court rather than this limited panel of 3. But still, this is some choice words from Judge Rao. Because the EPA issues the grants in accordance with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's no evidence the agency sought to dismantle the programs without congressional approval. The EPA's actions here are well within the executive branch's authority and responsibility. It's not just their authority, they have a duty to manage the expenditure of funds and to ensure that money appropriated by Congress is properly spent for its intended purpose. And you're basically saying, no, you can't decide whether or not it's for its intended purpose. Nothing in the Inflation Reduction Act prevented EPA from taking care that the grant programs be faithfully executed. Because what Judge Chutkan wanted to say is, since Congress passed a law in 2024 under the Inflation Reduction Act, you can't, the government itself cannot withhold from following that law. So, and they passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Now Trump has to see it through. He has no authority to override that. But the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't say that the government isn't supposed to make sure that its programs and grants aren't properly carried out. They have every right to do that. It's so ridiculous. Stupid. The district court also abused its discretion, applying the remaining winter factors: irreparable harm to the plaintiff, balance of equities, and the public interest. Some grantees may be forced to shutter their operations. Those companies, some of them might have to close down during the litigation. Their harms do not outweigh the interests of the government and the public and the proper stewardship of billions of taxpayer dollars. Like, boo-hoo, you're gonna have to close down your companies. Yeah, it's billions of dollars here. The loss of grant funds during this litigation is not irreparable because the harm is compensable through money damages. They can just give you the money later if, in fact, you're entitled to it. If you're legally entitled to it, sure, you'll get it later. It's well established that economic loss does not, in and of itself, constitute irreparable harm, because we feel like you can always just pay the person back later, so it's not irreparable. The one exception where economic loss is going to be irreparable harm is when it threatens the very existence of the movement's business, which is what they claimed. They do say that, hey, we're not going to have any business here at all, and the court addresses that as well. The grantees do not fall within this exception. Entities that were created solely for the purpose of applying for and spending these federal grants. So these are not companies that were around for decades that were awarded these grants. These are companies that sprung up overnight for the purposes of basically being a home to house this money that Biden and his cronies were going to be kicking out. So these companies were established for the purposes of getting these grants. So now you're going to tell me these companies are going to shut down? Boo-hoo! You opened them up 10 minutes ago for the purpose of trying to take money from the taxpayer. So now without this money, you can't exist? What the hell is that? You're not an ongoing business. You're just a business that was created 10 seconds ago. You're a wet dream of Obama and the Biden administrations. You're like, oh, here, I'm going to set my friends up and they'll open up companies and we'll just call it, oh, they get the money. Oh, I think they're going to get the money because, folks need someone. They'll be good at dispensing the money appropriately to make sure that we have a green earth. These entities were established to benefit. So while their existence relies on grant money and the district court held, that's because these entities were established to benefit from government largesse. That's why they're here. They are here as vultures to come and suck the teat of the American government after Biden has left, after the Biden administration has died, after it is gone. They're here to continue sucking from us. That does not amount. So the demise of companies like that does not amount to irreparable harm. Well said. The balance of equities and public interest factors similarly favor the government. By the way, if you lose on any one of these, you're not entitled to injunctive relief. Judge Rao is just knocking them out one after another, like just popping them out. That works better. The government and public have a stronger interest in protecting the public fisc and eliminating the appearance of impropriety around these grant programs if grant terminations are later determined to be a breach of contract. So let's say, in fact, they win in the federal court of claims, in the court of federal claims. In that case, the government will be required to pay. And these companies would substantially, if not entirely, redress the grantee's interim injuries. But if the government is proven to be right, and we force the bank to keep giving out money when they should not have gotten that money, there's no apparent means to recover funds spent down while the litigation is running its course. So what they're explaining here is this: let's say we get the call wrong. What is the harm if we get the call wrong? Well, let's say we allow the government. Let's say we allow Trump to stop making payments now, today. And later on, when we finish this, we wrap up this whole case, we realize, hey, you know what? That was wrong. Under the law, Trump had to keep making those payments. So now how are we going to fix that? Well, they'll give him money at that point in time. So it might suck for them for a while, but they'll be made whole eventually. I mean, they were only propped up 10 seconds ago. So they'll be made whole eventually. So it's not great, but it's not disastrous. What happens if, in fact, we force Trump to continue making these payments and it turns out they weren't entitled to the payments? Trump properly stopped them. And we find that at the end of the day. What relief is the government going to get from these companies? Oh, that money's gone. Whoop, out of here. You're not getting that money back. So the taxpayer would be completely screwed and never see that money again. And that's why the damage is far worse if, in fact, the court was to force Trump and the banks to continue allowing these payments to go through to these sick companies. Finally, Congress has explicitly channeled breach of government contract claims to the Court of Federal Claims, limited remedies to damages. Court of Federal Claims may neither grant declaratory nor injunctive relief. District Court has no jurisdiction over these claims, and even the Court of Federal Claims lacks authority to issue injunctive relief. There's no one here to help you. Sorry, no one here. The same considerations support vacating the injunctions as to Citibank. For the foregoing reasons, we vacate the district court's injunction, remand the case to district court for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. So there you go. There you go. Good day indeed. It still needs to survive scrutiny and bunk, and who knows what the crazy woke judges in the circuit court will say when you're looking at them as a group, when you're looking at them as a collective. But it's a good sign. Good sign. Very good sign. Do a quick check over in the ghetto. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Are you guys fine here? Is everything okay here? Everything all right? Yeah, we're good there. Okay. And over. What are this? Oh, good. All right. Chat's going on over there. All right. Eight of these months, tax-free, ain't bad. That's right. I love everyone. This is King of Recruitment, Master Phillips. Remember, for 16 months, I'm going to give you the horn here. Also, I'm drunk. When's the next call-in show? I think people would like advance notice like me. Just saying. 16 months ago was a whole different me. Join the following, people. Well, you see? The King of Recruitment telling you his whole life has changed. Hopefully for the better. Hopefully. It's a little unclear. Did you see the AEA Act case released today? It's crazy, but in other direction. Yeah, I actually was reading the blurbs, and I thank you fans for sharing that with me. So I was reading the blurbs that Margot Cleveland shared on that. This is the case regarding the Alien Enemies Act and his right to declare Tren de Aragua as an invading army, which has been bouncing through the courts, went up to Supreme Court, and they basically told the circuit court it was remanded, and they said, fix it. It's been bouncing around, and it was a very long and convoluted decision, which did not seem favorable by its end. I haven't read through the whole thing. I only read through the blurbs there. So I didn't feel like I was, and Alligan News, I thank you again, brother, shared it with me, but I was like, I really need to dissect this on my own rather than trying to parse through it on the air with you guys. And it only came out like an hour before the show, so I didn't have a chance to really do that. But maybe tomorrow, we'll see. Joe's conducting trial run for the lighting technique he'll use for a Halloween night stream, reviewing the spookiest court cases this side of the campfire. You really don't like the lights? Okay, let me explain something to you. I really like having the light glowing on my face. I think it's better, but the placement is tricky. It's very, very tricky. I sort of like have a string of bright lights. I would show it to you, but if I turn the light toward the camera, I will blind like 9 of you. And then I'm going to get all sorts of lawsuits and stuff. I just don't need it. I just don't need it. So, yeah, because they are blinding lights. And there are right now 3 of them in my face. I can probably, just to get, I can't, they're sort of too trenched down for me to. I think it gives me a healthier glow, though. No? No? Am I alone in thinking that? All these cases resolve around money, which is not available for induction relief. Good night, Joe. True. Your glasses are reflecting devil horns on your forehead. Shut up. I'm going to give you 22 months. That's pretty funny, Salty. Got a sec for an unrelated legal question? No, but I'm going to do it anyway because you're a drop barracuda, and I want you to come back soon. If it's been determined that consent cannot be given when one or both parties are drunk, why is it legal for police to compel suspects to give up their fifth? If it's been determined that consent cannot be given when one or both parties are drunk, why is it legal for police to compel suspects to give up their fifth? You're talking about like drunk driving when they pull someone over, I assume? I would tell you because your fifth is something you have to assert. So it's not like you have a right to your Fifth Amendment. That your right cannot be taken away from you, but you need to assert it. So just because you are too drunk to think to assert it would not be, they're not taking away something from you. You're just too incapacitated to actually exercise that which you have a right to exercise. I haven't researched this at all, obviously, but philosophically, that's what makes the most sense to me. I hope that helps. I think that makes sense. Anyone bothered to ask what the Blood and Crips think of Trende Owawa? No, I don't know. Joe's Indian name is Shadow Eyebrows. Oh, I see that. Now I see what you all say. Now I see what you're saying. The devil horn. Oh, because my glasses on here. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Now I'm conscious about it. Oh my gosh. It's like, we're going to have to change this. I'm going to have to change this. All right. Once you see it, you can't unsee it now. Bastards. Joe, love you're back home. Bad line, but diggers have to make a tunnel to your sister's house. Appreciate that. Get to work, brother. Don't get mad, but the shadows in your eyebrow frames on your face look like angry eyebrows. I didn't even see this from Kimmy. All right. Now I'm too conscious. So much darker. I don't like it. Oh, gosh. I feel like I'm in darkness. Darkness is falling. So, what? It's been a minute, Drop Barracuda. It's definitely been a minute. Spicy Sophism says, in good company, did you know it was once mistranslated as Moses had horns, hence depiction of some statues? I think it was actually Michelangelo. It's brought down in Exodus. Let me think if I can. I'm going to try and guess the chapter. Give me a minute. After the golden calf, Moses goes back up the mountain and begs for forgiveness, then goes back up the mountain. a third time. Each time for 40 days. So first it goes up 40 days, comes down, there's a calf, goes back up for 40 days, there for 40 days, praying for forgiveness, comes back down, goes back up for 40 days, get a second set. When he came down to the second set, there were rays of light that were coming from his face. That's what the Torah says. So in the English, so the Hebrew word there is Keren Or. Now Keren, Or means light, and Keren has many translations. One of those translations is horns. So I think it was Michelangelo. I'm just guessing Sistine Chapel, but I could be mistaken about this. Could be Da Vinci. Certainly one of the great Renaissance artists painted Moses with horns. And that created the myth that Jews are born with horns. So, yes, the spice says instead of Moses' face shown, I'm going to guess chapter 28 in Exodus. But I could be off by a couple of chapters. All right. Let's move onward because we got a lot more to cover. Ah, yes. Hegseth's army. This is exciting. I saw one thing after another. And I was like, oh, this is good. Many of you might have seen that I said, Trump, hire me. I'll start kicking him out. I'll start going through it. Look at that. The light like flickers on me when I hit my table. That's not good. You can't tell me that the lighting here is better. I know that I don't like the shadow on my eyes with the other lights, but you can't tell me that this lighting is better. I won't hear it. It's not true. But where was I? I just plot twist. Zipporah has a mikveh at 40 days. Here's another plot twist for you. At a certain point in their marriage, Moses became celibate. And by that point, I think he was. Even though she was supposedly like breathtakingly beautiful. I was off. All right, Exodus 34. Appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you. Thank you, Kimmy. I said I was feeling like I might be off on that one. All right. So, yeah. Pete Hegseth. That's the next story we're going on to. Breaking. Nick Sorter was the first one I saw, so we'll credit him. Breaking up to 600 military lawyers have just been authorized to serve as immigration judges in an effort to speed up mass deportations per the Pentagon. Let's go! 600 military lawyers. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about. I said, you're going to need a lot of... It's like when you talk about removing, if you're really serious about removing and processing millions of illegals, and let's face it, they're not undocumented. They have documents. Some of them might throw their documents away when they cross the border, but they got documents. Okay? When you're talking about removing millions of illegals, that's a lot of court cases. And we have a very short time frame to do this. You need to find ways to expedite, get things moving. And sure enough, that's what we have. 600. So I said, you don't need to appoint a lot more people. And I said, but then the problem I was concerned, the concern I had was if you start hiring a lot of these administrative judges, because immigration is handled by administrative judges. They're the ones who do it, not the federal courts. They're not a federal appointment that are confirmed by Congress. They are just designated by the executive branch. And That's who's in the immigration court right now. That's who was in the immigration court 2 years ago, 15 years ago. That's the way our immigration court system operates. It's not part of the judiciary, which is why schnooks from the left, like Brian Krasenstein here, says the Pentagon has authorized up to 600 military lawyers to serve as temporary immigration judges per a memo obtained by the AP. This is a blatant expansion of military power into a civilian judicial process, a dangerous erosion of separation between the two. Every day we inch closer to fascism. No, this is a way of actually finding 600 judges who actually are patriots, who are not going to, because my big concern when I said, what happens if you hire a lot of these people and you get a bunch of woke applicants who decide, yeah, I'll sign up to be an immigration judge, and then every case that comes before them, like, you're admitted, you're allowed to stay, you're allowed to stay, you're allowed to stay. And you have a couple of bad apples like that, you could have 25%, 40% of them be bad apples, and instead of it serving to help remove these people, now you'll have all these thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands potentially of terribly flawed decisions that now these illegal immigrants now get the blessing of the court, where they would ignore the law and basically just start approving one illegal after another to remain here, one asylum claim after another, even though under the law they're not valid as asylee claims. So I said, that's a really big concern. How do you avoid hiring folk like that? Well, the best way to do that is you get people with some legal background and like lawyers who understand the law, understand how, hopefully, most of them will. And if they're in the military, they're likely to be pretty based. Not all of them. We have your occasional General Millies and stuff like that who are twisted in the brain. But if they were serving as judges as lawyers in the military, you've seen them argue before. You know how effective they are. Someone has seen them. So you're able to basically glean through who they are and know that these are people who are actually going to try to carry out the law in good faith and remove 98, 99% of the people who come before them as not being valid asylees. It's not easy to qualify as a legal asylee. And now you have a nice stockpile of administrative judges who are able to help facilitate the processing of due process and get them out. Because there's only so many hours in the day for one judge to do anything. And it's, you know, when you're talking about millions of people, you need a lot of people. You need an army of people as administrative judges if you're going to try and due process them out of this country. So there you go. So no, we're not inching closer to fascism. Ridiculous. It's the same. This is why it's so ridiculous. The reason it's so ridiculous is because he's complaining about there, you know, it's not expansion of military power. They have a background as military lawyers. They're now immigration judges, and they get appointed by the executive branch. And that's it. There's no conferment. They're not part of the judiciary. The administrative judges have always been part of the executive branch. So if they're part of the executive branch, why couldn't the executive branch just bring on more and take from a resource pool, which is likely to turn out judges who are administrative judges who are both competent in legal issues and also more likely to act in good faith, adherence to the law, the way we want all our judges to act. So, but let's break down this story here from the perspective of post-millennial. 600 military lawyers to serve as immigration judges. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has authorized 600 military lawyers in the Department of the DOJ to serve as temporary immigration judges, according to a report from the Associated Press. This comes as Trump administration is trying to speed up deportation processing. A memo reviewed by the outlet said that the military would start by sending 150 lawyers to the DOJ as soon as practicable, and that the first round of lawyers will be chosen by next week. The memo was dated August 27th. The DOJ has requested the move from the Pentagon. A White House official on Tuesday told reporters that Trump is looking at several options to get through the backlog of immigration cases, around 3.5 million. The official added that the move should be a priority that everyone, including those waiting for adjudication, can rally around. I don't know why it's only 3.5 million. We need to start rounding up more folks. The effort comes as the Trump administration is trying to ramp up deportations of illegal immigrants in the country with a focus on those who are committing crimes and are public safety threats. As the administration has been ramping up the effort, a number of immigration judges have been fired or have taken deferred resignations offered by the administration earlier this year. There are about 600 immigration judges currently working, meaning that the move from the Pentagon will double the number of judges working on the cases. Among other moves to speed up deportations, the Trump administration has mobilized 1,700 National Guard troops to go to 19 different states around the nation to assist with the processing of immigration cases and aid law enforcement efforts. This is a tough job. It's a tough job. There's a lot there. I think that's it. All right. This is what we voted for. It's 100% true. 100% true. We all voted for this. Reflective surface in front of you, i.e. whiteboard with lights above and behind you, will solve lighting issue. Nice to have you back, Joe. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Reflective surface in front with lights above. The problem is that there's like open room right behind where my camera is. So I'm not like right by a wall. Now, I could adjust everything here, but that's why I can't just have a light in front of me, like hanging in front of me. It's like it would have to be like hovering midair, unless I have put up a stand here. So it's not, you see what I'm saying? So most people would have a stand with like a circle light. When I tried doing that, I actually made the mistake of plugging it into my computer, and I plugged it in, and everything went dark. My whole house went dark. It was a nightmare. I was like, uh-oh. I don't think that's good. I blew my computer out. It was a new computer also. Blew it out. This is one of my early days of streaming, when I had one of those ring lights up. So I tried putting a ring light up. Now, I could try putting it into a different outlet. I made a mistake of plugging it through my computer. That way I figured I could control it with my computer, turn it on and off through my computer. That's a mistake you don't make more than once. That was like a $2,000 mistake. So I see. Thank you, Drop Barracuda. It's pretty good. I would call it Torah, not Old Testament, but yeah, it's. I think that the chances are very low when it comes to the 5 books of Moses. I think there's very few people. There may be an occasional viewer who's going to know more than me, but I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty detailed in my knowledge of it. Thank God. Adrian says, OMG, this lighting is so much better. Why don't you like nice things? The first looked like you were a hostage somewhere. By the way, where's the red frame? The black is throwing me off. Also, ghost squirrels. Oh, that's what we're missing. We are missing that. What happened to my red frame? Why is that? Definitely supposed to have that. I wasn't looking to remove that. There we go. Now we're back. Now we're really back. I knew something felt off. I thought, you have to realize when I have those bright lights here, so it's like when I'm looking at my monitor, there's like bright light in my face. So like everything is just sort of like, it's like that Harry Potter scene where he's in the train station after Voldemort killed him. And it's just like, but I try adjusting and getting used to it for the purposes of suiting my vanity, I guess. But this is why we can't have light things. Nice. Nice. I see what you did there. I see what you did. Resilient says, Joe, if you want funny, the left is going to be against this, even though under Biden they say we just need to hire more judges. Yeah, they just don't want Trump hiring more judges. That's the problem. They don't want Trump hiring more judges. That's for sure. All right. What else do I have for you? I wanted to address something. This is not something I listed, but I want to address something from you, which had a lot of people very confused, a lot of people angry at Trump about what he said about COVID remedies, which, you know, I tread very carefully in this particular domain. And I will again here. So I want to break down this truth that he put out that had a lot of people upset at him. It's very important that the drug companies justify the success of their various COVID drugs. Many people think they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree. With CDC being ripped apart over this question, I want the answer, and I want it now. I've been shown information from Pfizer and others that is extraordinary, but they never seem to show those results to the public. Why not? They go off on the next hunt and let everyone rip themselves apart, including Bobby Kennedy Jr. and CDC, trying to figure out the success or failure of the drug company's COVID work. They show me great numbers and results, but they don't seem to be showing them to many others. I want them to show them now to CDC and the public and clear up this mess one way or the other. I hope Operation Warp Speed was as brilliant as many say it was. If not, we all want to know about it and why. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter, President DJT. This had a lot of people who are identified as being on the right upset. They said, see, he's still doubling down on the whole treatment program thing and stuff like that. And this is not, I'm not going to be having a conversation with you about the efficacy of any particular vaccines, because I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about that. I mean, I've made many jokes about that, but the reality is, obviously, I'm not a doctor. So what do I know? I'm not claiming to have any knowledge, but I am going to address what he said, what he has said in the past, criticism he's taken, and what he's saying here. And this seemed to draw greater criticism. So as he says here in this, that there's a lot of debate about the efficacy of drugs that were created for the purposes of combating COVID. And first and foremost, you should talk to your doctor about staying safe and healthy for you. But this is just a reflection of his assessment of the state of the information war about this particular issue. And it definitely, well, no matter where you find yourself aligning in this information war, you cannot deny the fact that there certainly was an information war, with one side trying to claim that the drugs that we were given had great efficacy, another side claiming that they were disastrous and that they did not have great efficacy. Now, again, I am not weighing in with any opinion on that, because that's not my role here because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not weighing in with that. What I will say, and YouTube certainly does not want me weighing in on this, so I'm going to avoid that. But I will say that Trump has praised Operation Warp Speed, the operation that he created for the purposes of quickly creating a vaccine, as being a brilliant success. He did this even after he lost his election. He has proudly touted many times that his first administration created a remedy for COVID faster than anyone dared, years faster than anyone dared dreamed possible. A lot of his supporters disagree with him. They think that it was not the cure-all, it was not the remedy that Trump believes it to be. And the efficacy of this and success of that, a lot of people will look at this and say, you see, he's still standing behind it. He's making these statements here about how Pfizer has come out and shown him great things. and saying they show me great numbers and results. They don't seem to be showing them to many others. Some people from who are considered influencers of the right have taken Trump to task over this, saying, you see, he's doubling down on it, trying to say that he was right because he's believing everything Pfizer tells him. And look, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you whether or not Pfizer is what they're showing is reliable. You need to investigate that for yourselves. I'm just trying to peek into Trump's brain. So that's why I'm bringing this up for you. I want to share with you my reflections about why Trump would send this out. Like, what is the purpose? Where are you going with this? What is he really trying to say? And I'll take your feedback if you think I'm correct or incorrect. You can leave a comment now. You can comment if you're watching afterwards. You can give me a comment. This is how I interpret Trump in this particular post. I think that he sees that, with this issue starting to resurrect again in the public discussion. So, and he sees issues coming up with Bobby Kennedy Jr., the CDC. I think that he knows that he's on record as praising Operation Warp Speed as a success, in contrast to many of his supporters who do not view it as a success at all. I think most of his supporters blame Biden for implementation of Operation Warp Speed once the drug was created by several different companies. And I think what Trump is doing here is, I think he's hedging. This feels very much like a hedge to me, because he's talking about how he's like, look, I know you guys haven't seen what I've seen, but Pfizer showed me all sorts of great things. But then I sort of have to ask, you would ask yourself, why don't you just say, make this public? So I think he's basically, I look at this as a feel out the public post. That's what I think is happening here. I look at it as a feeler post. He's like, I'm going to tell you that I'm sort of, look, they tell me great things. Other people are not so excited about it. They've shown me things they haven't shown you. I don't know why they haven't shown it to other people. We should do a whole investigation. And I think that this gives him an opportunity to basically land in a spot that he feels most comfortable with public support. And this enables him to sort of hedge and sort of feel around this. Because I think he thinks some of his supporters I think he feels his own supporters are very split on it. And I think it's a way I think this is a feel out the public post. Because a lot of people, I was never a big fan of him, praising himself for Operation Warp Speed. But so like I said, a lot of the people who tend to be referred to as woke right are taking him to task on this. I don't think that makes any sense, because he's basically, if you look at it, he's saying, look, the reason I'm calling it a success is because I've seen things you haven't, but I still have questions myself. So I think we need further investigation. So I don't know why this would create greater ire. I don't see why this would create greater ire for Trump. I think this is people who are looking to show that I'm on the right and I'm willing to bash Trump, are now basically have picked up this post and used as an opportunity to sort of bang that drum that I'm on the right and I'm willing to bash Trump and call him out on this, because I'm a truth teller, and anyone who's not going to tell you this is not a truth teller. And what I'm saying to you is, I don't think Trump is saying anything here. I think nothing different than what he has said. I wasn't crazy about what he said in the past. Certainly wasn't crazy about the way he lauded Dr. Fauci. That's terrible. But I don't think that this post is trenching in and saying, I'm right, you're wrong. I think it's just the opposite. I think he's trying to create himself wiggle room here to draw back and say, well, now that we've done this further investigation, I think that's the way he'd phrase it is, what Biden did with Operation Warp Speed was a disaster. And I think he's sort of feeling out, should I continue going around? Does public support come along with encourage me to keep touting the success of Operation Warp Speed, or should I drop it? That's my take as to what this is all about. But I am very curious about your take. That's why I think he sent that post. I think he's trying to do the opposite. I think he's trying to feel out what public sentiment is at. So the most important sentence in that post is, if not, we want to know about it and why. That's the crux of his posts. Yeah. If not, we want to know about it and why. I don't know that that's, you might take that as the crux. I don't know. I don't know that that's what he is. I think he throws that out there so that folks will take that as a crux. I don't take that as there actually being a formal investigation going on. And that could be another thing he's feeling out, is, do people want him to create a whole investigation? So I don't think when he wrote that post, that's what he was saying, is we're going to be having a formal investigation. But I think perhaps part of the feeling out is, should we launch an investigation? And if so, I agree with you, Kimmy, that, yeah, a good investigation, a proper and fair investigation would be a good thing. All right. Let's start covering some crazy libs before we get on out of here. This is a woman you might know as Rashida Tlaib.
Gaza is the compass in this country. Look at this rooms, motherfuckers. We ain't going anywhere. Political structures that I have to work in, that we are surrounded by, was built on slavery and genocide and.
That's the way she phrases it. This crazy bitch that I have to work in. You don't have to work there. You don't have to. You have the blessing of being a representative of the people, political organizations that I have to work in. You don't have to work there. You didn't have to come here.
That I have to work in, that we are surrounded by, was built on slavery and genocide and rape and oppression. Real?
Sickening. 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 This one is so grotesque.
Change doesn't come from the cowards and warmongers in Congress. It comes from the streets. It comes from all of us mobilizing and seizing the power to resist and fight back.
Seizing the power to resist and fight back. What the hell are you even saying? What are you trying to say with that, Rashida Tlaib?
Gaza is the compass in this country. Now we're in Congress, and we're every corner of the United States. Look at this room.
Okay. So she's basically proudly touting that they're in Congress, and to me, look, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think that when she says this part right here, that she's basically calling for an insurrection.
Real change doesn't come from the cowards and warmongers in Congress. It comes from the streets. It comes from all of us mobilizing and seizing the power to resist and fight back.
What is seizing the power to resist and fight back? What the hell does that even mean? If it's not calling for insurrection. I think that's what she's calling for. boo-hoo, poor her. She has to work in a system that was created based on oppression and racism, all that other crap. God, makes me sick. I want to give you 2 assessments on this. Here's the first one. He's directly addressing her. The second one is not, but I think that the second one is actually even more powerful.
Genocide enabler, look at this rooms, motherfuckers. We ain't going anywhere.
You notice how she screams like a terrorist psycho Hamas cheerleader? If you're not in America, you won't believe this. She's not only an American citizen, but a politician here. Mask off point. Nothing like when she was begging on her knees like a dog for U.S. citizenship, right? You see how these migrants fool us yet? Once they get our passport, the mask is off. They spit in the face of the very countries in the West that gave them everything. They don't want to join America, Europe, or Australia. No, they want to conquer it. Then the same crowd cries like entitled crybabies when Palestinian passports get rejected here in America. We don't owe any of you anything. Get over yourselves. It's super cringe too. Abraham Lincoln warned us, America won't get destroyed from the outside. If we lose our freedoms, it's because we destroy ourselves. Look around. 153 years later, here we are. These same squad politicians are fundraising for Hamas supporter who's going to be potentially the mayor of New York, giving cover to people who openly cheer for our enemies. Trump just said America will take over and own Gaza, turning it into a beautiful Riviera in the Middle East. Think about that. Instead of rubble and rockets, it could be beaches, hotels, good jobs, and peace with beautiful Israel next door. Do you think the Palestinians will even say thank you after Trump and Israel generously offered to rebuild Gaza into something beautiful? Or will they just complain like unappreciative jerks? And I'll leave you with a black pill. You're not just tolerant or inclusive or open-minded. You're getting conquered. The mask is off. So here's my question for you. Are you going to sit there quiet and docile, or speak up and share this video before it's too late?
So I do think we've seen what's happening in Europe. We see what's going on in the UK. If you're unfamiliar, that they have all these protests now where the St. George flag, which is the flag of, which is England's flag, not the UK flag, the Union Jack, but the St. George flag, which is the white flag with a red cross. That is viewed as being somewhat racist. And it's created all sorts of, the strife that's going on there is incredible. And I want to be crystal clear so no one misunderstands what I'm saying here. There are a lot of really great people who are Muslims. I don't think that there should be a ban on Muslims. I think that that's bad. I think that that notion, that concept is bad. But I definitely think that we are foolish if we're not particular in who it is that we are inviting in. Because, and I don't think we're sufficiently savvy to it, because we bring in the Rashida Tlaibs and the Ilhan Omars of the world. And if you think that this is accidental, that this is just like a crazy thing, oh, they're just a fluke one-off, in that case, I'll share with you this woman here who is a Muslim, who's breaking down that this is not like just something that's happening organically.
The Muslim Brotherhood, as we know today,
Daya Ziada, Egyptian geopolitics expert. Let's write down a little bit, so too loud.
it's all about achieving their goal to sabotage Western civilization from within. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, they are succeeding. They found several documents. One of them, it's called the Explanatory Memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood Strategy in North America. and it details the strategy of the Muslim Brotherhood to infiltrate ideologically, democratically, through nonviolent means, North American society to sabotage it from within. They even use this phrase through launching what they call civilizational jihad, manipulating the political system, manipulating democracy. And they said very clearly that the key tool they are going to use to do that is the Palestinian cause, to bring the Muslim communities together and to get support from other communities to make people sympathize with their causes. And one other thing was mentioned in this document as well, Islamophobia. And it was based on another document that's called the Project. And the project is much broader. It's about the strategy of the Muslim Brotherhood in the West in general. So yes, all of what we're seeing today is not new. It's not a reaction to a humanitarian situation in Gaza. It's not random protesting in sympathy with people in war. No, it's very well planned, and they knew that this is their moment to target the Jewish communities. Because also, if you look at their protests, it's not about supporting the Palestinian people. It's not about giving them a Palestinian state or giving them a better future. No, it's all about Jew hatred, going after American Jewish students. How this is going to serve Palestine or the Palestinian cause? It's all about achieving their goal, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, they are succeeding.
And that's why I think Rashid's a Libs. I think she's a manifestation of that. Now, fortunately, we are way behind. We are not nearly as buried as deep in this as Europe is. Europe is, there's probably half a dozen countries in Europe that are gone, that they're never going to be, they're never recovering from the internal friction that they've decided to mass import from the division and strife that they basically said they invited into their doors and said, here. It's like, but England is never, I don't, in my heart of hearts, I don't think England will ever be the same again. Never. Germany? No. These countries are never going to be the same. I mean, and some people would, I guess, say that's a good thing, depending on where your leanings are. But I'm saying they're never going to be the same. And I do think that America is at a slower pace, just walking itself down that road. And again, I'm not saying that it's not a particular individual, it's this person or that person. And I'm not saying that there should be, I certainly don't think, I think it would be horrifying if there was any sort of, I'm not trying to say, get rid of the Muslims. I think that would be a terrible thing to do. I'm simply saying to be cognizant of the ideological objectives of folks who are coming in. Do they support Western culture or not? That's an important thing. If ideologically they're opposed to America as it's constituted, and that doesn't mean that they have to, that they should abandon their Muslim faith. No, like I said, a lot of Muslims are perfectly content to live their own individual lives under the blessings of religious freedom that have been created by our founders and are a vital part of our legacy, and have no interest in trying to alter the fabric of what America actually is. And yeah, I mean, folks like that are totally fine. Folks like that are no different from any other immigrants who've come to this country. Folks like that are actually a potential blessing to America. However, it doesn't seem as if we have a sufficient ideological guardrail to ensure that immigrants who come in here legally have a genuine appreciation for that which makes America great, for that which is sacrosanct, for the respect for ideological differences, for the respect for religious differences, which is what has enabled America to flourish for the last 2.5 centuries. That's what's allowed us to flourish. And if we bring in folks who have no interest in seeing America flourish, then ultimately they will become the same cancer here that they are in the EU. And that's not what the reason we should look to the EU is to learn the lesson from what they're going through right now. They are like just they are the perfect test model for us to say, oh my God, like when you mass import tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of folks who don't share your ideological worldview as to how your country is supposed to function, how is that possibly supposed to result in anything other than chaos, division, fighting, and ultimately, almost certainly, over a long enough period of time, rebellion? So you think that in your grandchildren's lifetime, they're not going to see a massive war happen in Europe? Because that's what's brewing. And it's not going to be like any war that happened in the 20th century. It's not going to be any kind of war like that. Frankly, when I say in your grandchildren's lifetime, I'm being generous. I'm being very, very generous. Because it wouldn't shock me at all if we see in the next 10, 15 years like a massive war in several of these countries. Tensions are only growing higher and higher. And, you know, if someone is a real pessimist, they can scale a model which would show something like that developing over the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm simply saying I don't want to see America ever devolve to that. So to the extent that any person of any faith or religion is interested in coming to America and maintaining a respect for the various cultures of America and say, look, I'm going to do my thing, you're going to do your thing. And even though our things may be somewhat different, that's cool. And that's part of the great blessings of this country. If that's their attitude, it's genuinely their attitude. And frankly, vetting that out seems like a very difficult thing to do with any kind of real sincerity. But if you can vet that out, great. But if you're not vetting that out, I don't know what the hell we're doing here. Like, I don't know how it is that you can basically say, oh, this is okay. And it wouldn't matter, by the way, whether they're Muslims or if it was like they could be Bengalese. They could be any. They could follow Fangul or Judaism. It doesn't matter what it is. But if it's a foreign type of perspective and the objective is to try and incorporate that should be something that is that will take dominance in American culture, that is completely in opposition to what this country, the premise and promise of this country is. And I think it's something we need to wake ourselves up to as far as what it is how we envision leaving this country to our children and grandchildren, so that they are not seeing themselves in Europe's condition. That's what I'm ultimately getting at with this. That's where I was going with this. Consuelo from The Simpsons has really jumped off the deep end. Imagine Trump trolling the cartels by putting conquistador helmets on their army before heading into That'd be funny. That'd be really good. My daughter's in Germany now, worried for her safety. I don't blame you. And I think it really all depends on the neighborhood, like in almost any community. Like it all really depends on the neighborhood as to how dangerous or safe it is. But yeah, we're parents, we tend to worry. If we're honest, nobody's missing Luxembourg. Nobody. Nobody is at all. Where have you been, Drop Barracuda? I missed those. If we allow the Muslims to reign, we will all be living under Sharia law. They're using kindness to push their way into our land. And like I said, some do. Some, but this is, I don't think it's true of all Muslims. I don't think it's true of all Muslims. The question is, and from a pragmatic perspective, how do you actually vet out? Because I can guarantee you that when Rashida Tlaib was knocking on the door saying, let me in, she wasn't screaming, death to the racist, imperialist, sexist, patriarchy, prejudiced American system, American government that she's screaming now. So how would you identify Rashida Tlaib before you say yes to letting her in? It's a good question that I don't have an answer for you tonight. But I hope to find one. If you have suggestions as how we could do that, that'd be great. And finally tonight, for your viewing pleasure, in case you missed it, over the last several days, there have been all sorts of comments about concerns for President Trump's health. Fortunately, so as not to alarm anyone, his concerns are all empty, baseless, and silly. But the left is sitting there having their dreams. Here's Trump addressing questions about that.
As of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't see that. I have heard it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. I did numerous shows and also did a number of truths, long truths, I think pretty poignant truths. No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active actually over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff. Well, it's fake news. It's just it's so fake. That's why the media has so little credibility. I knew they were saying like, is he okay? How's he feeling? What's wrong? I said, I just left. And it's also sort of a longer weekend, it's Labor Day weekend. So I would say a lot of people know I was very active this Labor Day.
All right, so there you go. There's him wishing that. There's apparently the reports of his death were greatly exaggerated. And so how did the lunatic left deal with this?
You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news. You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking,
what a psychotic lunatic. He's obviously referring to the reports about, questions about Trump's health. And he's saying, he's sitting there hoping, and he's promising his audience that there will be news someday. I don't see that as him calling for his assassination, the way folks claim. I don't see that. But it certainly is a macabre type of perspective that he's sitting there waiting for Trump to die. I mean, you're a freaking governor. You're a governor of a state. And you're sitting there laughing with your audience about the idea of the president of the United States dying. And I did this show throughout most of the Biden administration. I don't think I ever said anything like that. I question his cognitive abilities. Said I don't think he's running anything. I didn't view Kamala as any better of an option. I called him the most corrupt president in history. He was, and I wanted to just make sure you all knew that he was the most corrupt president in American history. It's not even close. Not the worst. He was terrible. Not the worst human in America. That claim to that title is solely reserved for Barack Obama. But yeah, Barack Obama, who did everything humanly possible that one person could do to destroy this country without, actively pushing a nuclear button. But he was the most corrupt person, and I still don't think I ever said that. And I'm not even the governor. I'm actually a freaking talk show host. That's the sort of thing that I should be saying in order to get clicks. I should be saying stuff like that more if I was willing to sell my soul for the purposes of trying to make money. But I don't think you heard me. I don't think you've ever heard me say that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm curious if I ever said it. I'm a psychopath. I mean, I do think that he looks to me like he's psychotic. I've always thought, and I've said, I think that there's something genuinely psychotic in his brain. I think his wife with her crazy eyes also is. I think they're just they're a sicko couple. I think that there's something. I think they're demented. And I'm not saying that like in a ha they're great. Like no, I think they're psychologically damaged individuals who somehow he manages to win elections. That would be awesome. You can't handle the truth. Oh, that would be great. That would be really good. All right, so weighing in with his thoughts about psycho Tim Walz, lunatic that he is. And I'm thinking I'm gonna share one more thought with you after I'm done with this. One more thought. This is Scott Jennings doing what he does.
Not much of Biden's presidency, hearing Trump supporters, more MAGA influencers, kind of documenting every day, oh, Biden stumbled on getting on the plane, or he walked a certain way, or he looked a certain way today. And now we're sort of seeing that flip on its head with Democrats taking that approach.
And why did we have to document it? Because nobody else would.
Hold on a second. You had an opportunity to ask the president today about this, and you did not. Why?
Well, because when he got on the phone and sounded very much alive, I thought it would sound kind of stupid, frankly, to ask an alive person if they were dead. But I'll tell you who is a complete piece of shit. I'm going to tell you right now.
There have been a lot of swear words at this
Tim
table today.
Walz,
okay?
the governor of Minnesota, holding up a phone in front of a rally saying, well, we thought we were going to wake up and find out the president had died. Someday it'll happen. Someday it'll happen. I used to say he was the biggest buffoon in American politics, but it's worse now. No political official, no elected official should be walking around saying, well, I'm
not much of Biden's presidency, hearing.
Yeah. Wait. I didn't get the end of that. Hold on a second. That cut off before the end. Why'd that cut off for the end? I have a different one. Hold on a second. I want to get the full thing there. Give me a second. I thought that had the full thing. Why that? There we go.
I'm going to tell you right now.
There have been a lot of swear words at this table
Tim
today.
Walz,
okay?
the governor of Minnesota, holding up a phone in front of a rally saying, well, we thought we were going to wake up and find out the president had died. Someday it'll happen. Someday it'll happen. I used to say he was the biggest buffoon in American politics, but it's worse now. No political official, no elected official should be walking around saying, well, I'm hoping we wake up one day and the president of the United States has died. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But I'll tell you who is a complete piece.
So there you go. He is. I think he's actually a crazy person. Can you imagine if they had won? Can you imagine if Kamala and Walz had won? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, so I was going to give you one more story, one more quick thought. And this I thought was a very inspired thought, which I'm probably going to steal. So I'm going on record as telling you I'm probably going to steal this because I thought this was a really good thought from a comedian who's a very smart guy. Comedian I happen to enjoy. I think his first name is Jeff. Jeff, is that right? Jeff Dye? Is that his name? Is it Jeff? You guys will tell me if I'm wrong. I think it's Jeff Dye. But he has a really great point here, which fell on my feet, and I was like, I think I'm gonna be banging that drum a little bit. I'm gonna spend some time banging this drum. Is it Jeff? Is that his first name? Jeff Dye? One of you, someone's gonna know. And he happens to be based as hell.
I'm a 2001 liberal. That's just Republican now, which I think in this town makes me a Nazi. You know, like it's the same thing. I'm pro-gay, and that's not good enough. You have to be pro-trans and pro all this new thing. But if a girl was to like a truck in baseball, instead of us in 2001, we go, that's a tomboy. Now we would go, oh, well, she has to cut off her and she must be trapped in that body. It's an attack on the gay community, in my opinion.
You're sterilizing them. You're compromising their brain development, their bone development. The fact that we're getting past that so easily.
Yeah. I'm afraid it's far more nefarious than that. What is a safe space? They say it's a safe space, but really it's just a way that they can get you alone and indoctrinate you.
Oh my God,
They'll say, oh, you know, you don't have to ask your parents. They wouldn't get it. They're old. Don't ask your older brothers or sisters. We'll give you a safe place where we can give you Marxist nonsense. It's not safe. It's not safe from you. You're a grown-up and I'm a little kid and you're trying to confuse me.
There's a law that says if kids are transitioning socially in school, you don't have to tell the parent.
Which is what people...
This is the key thing that I want you to focus on, because I was like, that is a great point.
Wanted to separate religion and state from is if you're going to be teaching my kids all day, I would appreciate it if you didn't try to infiltrate their mind with religious things that maybe we don't want our kids to have. But it's perfectly okay to teach them about their religion of being woke, or their religion of gender theory, or their religion of communist values. Like, that's their religion. Like, they're literally indoctrinating them.
True.
And I think that, you know, a lot of people refer to, you know, the religion of woke, but I think that in the context of the necessity of separating church and state, and the fact that that is the only religion which is allowed in school, the only religion that's allowed in school is the religion of woke. And I think that that's an interesting way of trying to attack the woke ideology. But first, it would start with actually, you know, banging home the drum that this is a religion, that that its adherents are shunned if they have the audacity to break away from this religion. They're mocked, they're ostracized, and no matter what the religion purveys tomorrow, all the adherents have to embrace it as if it's a new finding. We all know, we see that they've laid the groundwork to basically try and portray to their adherents that anyone who opposes maps is, you know, evil. They're laying the groundwork for that. The same way they laid the groundwork for trans. That's what they're laying the groundwork for now. When they start going with the whole born this way and all that other stuff, that's the groundwork that they're laying. And there's always a new step, and there's a new, and this slope, and this slippery slope is so steep. And all the adherents to wokeism, I'm not talking about, you know, the people at the top who are clearly getting rich and powerful and popular and from being influencers of woke. I'm talking simply about your typical college kid who's trying to fit in and embraces woke. They're the ones who are forced to swallow the next step, the next rung down in the ladder, and you have to go along with it. And if not, you're just as evil as as Trump and all those other fascists, you know, and all the maggots. You're basically, you know, no less evil. That's a religion where you cannot question the new narrative. That's a religion. Those who question the narrative are outsiders and are evil, sinners, so to speak. They wouldn't use the word sinners because that's too close to actual religion. But they treat them the way religions would traditionally treat someone who's egregiously sinned. So that person is now no longer an ally, someone who's accepted, but that person is now someone to be shunned by the greater community. And you have to continually march along to their drumbeat. It's very, very difficult to distinguish woke from a religion. Other than that, they don't have an official Bible, so to speak, Torah, Quran, central figure who is considered the king or queen of woke with their respective, the progenitor of woke. The way, you had in chronological order, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, so they don't have that. But it's in all facets of what religion is, as far as the necessity to be a believer and to adhere to it and to defend it. It's a religion, and it's the only religion which is being taught in our schools. And anytime someone tries bringing actual religion into a school, they all start screaming, separation church and state, separation church and state. How do you do that? How can you say God in school? So now, and being an atheist is also part of their religion. If you've seen the clips, and being pro-Palestine is part of their religion as well. You saw the clips where with Coldplay, not the one with the chick who cheated with her boss. No, this one. I wasn't going to share this, but I'll bring this up. Ms. Ami Kozak is a comedian.
Chris Martin. I know what he was trying to do. I know he was trying to do the right thing. He had two girls up on his stage and asked them, where are you from? And they said, Israel. And immediately you can hear the groans from the crowd, everybody getting very uncomfortable. And what does Chris do? He says, oh, well, regardless of where you're from, I want to welcome you here as humans. I know what he was trying to do, but what a sad state of affairs we're in. Where just being from Israel is assumed to be a source of shame.
And in his crowd there, it probably is. Let me pull up here real quick for you. Pull up so we can actually just see the clip, because it's a short clip. This I don't have. I want you to actually hear. Here it is.
Where did you?
This is the guy. And I do think he's trying to be nice.
Come from today? From Israel. Okay, well. Okay, well, listen. I'm going to say this. I'm very grateful that you're here as humans, and I'm treating you as equal humans on earth, regardless of where you come from or don't come from.
Oh, thank you for treating me as if I'm human. I'm going to treat you as if you're human. I know he's not meaning it to come that way. I think he's genuinely trying to be nice, but he's like, I'm going to treat you as humans, even though you're Israeli. What? Imagine, as Ami says in that clip, which I don't want to play the whole 3 minutes. Imagine someone saying, oh, you're from India. I'm going to treat you as humans, even though you're from India. I'm going to treat you as humans, even though you're from Cambodia. You'd be like, what the hell? What the hell is that?
Thank you for being here. We're grateful, and thank you for being loving and kind. And although it's controversial, maybe, I also want to welcome people in the audience from Palestine, because
what? Why? Because all the audience has been properly woke trained into understanding those are the good guys.
And, thank you for being here. Where did you?
I don't think he's trying to be racist, but the point is, and Ami makes this point rather well. That's the comedian I was sharing with you. But it's a almost 4-minute clip, and I don't want to go through that whole thing. The point is that that's part of the religion. Is like, obviously you have to hate Israel and love Palestine, and he understands that. He understands what his audience is. So that's why, you know, if I accidentally slipped and brought up some Israelis on stage, let me just also mention the hi to people from Palestine. Why? It's like, oh, you're from China. Oh, I'm going to treat you as humans anyway. Right. And I just want to say hi to all the Taiwanese people also. Like, what? What are you talking about? But that is the culture. It's a reflection. He's reflection of the culture. So I don't think that he's a bad guy in this. I think he's another typical useful idiot who understands what the story is. And he knows what his audience is all thinking, because this is part of the religion. And that was really the focus here of, you know, all the different beliefs of wokeism. That if you're a white male, you're obviously not you're wrong. And just swallowing every bit of Marxist crap that they throw out there, that we have to, you know, basically take from the rich, because the rich are inherently evil and the poor are inherently noble, no matter what criminals they are, no matter how lacking in any value they are. This is a religion. A religion tells you, I know what you see with your eyes, but you're going to call that stunning and brave. And just parrot that back. And you better not think of doing otherwise, because otherwise you're going to be shunned. That's a religion. Where they basically say, oh, okay, the science doesn't really say this, but we're going to use the phrase trust the science. Unless the science is really terrible, in which case we're going to change the science. That's a religion. In every way possible, short of having a central book and a central individual at the top, unless you count Greta Thunberg, but, you know, accepting climate change as being something that's our fault, our stain, that we, you know, that we must forever be trying to cure. This is all, even though there's so much evidence to the contrary. How dare you? You know, if you question the evidence, you don't believe in science. But science is supposed to be continually questioning. No, you don't know anything. You're not enough of a geologist or whatever, or a climatologist, and you're certainly not holding a justice for climate. If you don't parrot the same stupid phrases that we invent, which are not actually English, like climate justice. Like, what does that even mean? Justice for climate doesn't have any actual real meaning. But you need to learn to speak, and you need to say the phrases and show that you're one of us, and then you are an ally, and you're an adherent, and you're a good person. And you have status. You have friends. This is a religion. And I think the idea, if we can ever get to a place where this is just understood that it's religion, first and foremost, that will chill future people from participating in this religion. The first important step is to identify it, recognize it for what it is. Recognize it for being a religion. If you recognize it for being a religion, then you can start to tackle it. And once you identify as being a religion, it becomes infinitely less popular. It becomes something that, you know, you're kind of a loser for swallowing. It's a way of identifying it and helping to crystallize in public specter that this is something this is something which is just corrupt nonsense, and it's made up crap. And once it's identified as a religion, well, then you could just basically start screaming every time you see them try and insert like their stupid Timmy's uncle really loves him book in their perverted, sick, twisted ways. You know, Billy's dad is now his mom, and their sick, twisted ways. with their ridiculous cartoon pictures. Now you could basically say this is religion. We got to separate church and state. Anyway, that's my final thought for the night. God willing, I expect to be back here tomorrow evening. I hope you will too. I'll probably start a lot earlier, probably like much closer to 10, almost certainly, because it's now 2:30 in the morning in local time. I appreciate you following and joining along. If I missed anything, what did I? Hey, Hanukkah is the holiday, the first anti-woke movement. Fair enough. I'll take it. If we allow Muslims to reign, we will all be living on this one. I got. If they live by the Quran, then they believe that we're all infidels. I think there are a lot of different interpretations of the Quran. I think there's a lot of interpretations of the Quran. So I want to hear this one. I missed that earlier. Now, a side effect of obesity in women is blue hair. Welcome home, Drop Barracuda. Welcome home. We missed you. All right. Well, you know what they say. Lamb meat is meant for woke adherents. And they, them is definitely not meant for you. Just put the two words together. It's not even, it's like climate justice, lab meat. It doesn't even make any sense. Doesn't even make any sense. That's why it's not for you. It's for they, them. And also, don't eat the bugs. Do not eat the bugs. Have a good night, everyone. And as always, Godspeed.